Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. Welcome, interested parties. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of August 14th, 2024. For the record, Council President Schwab will be participating in this evening's meeting remotely, and I will be presiding over the meeting. This City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington Open Public Meetings Act. Community members are welcome to join either in person, remote via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate via Zoom in the future, you'll find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett's website under the City Council Department. Please note that we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. We ask that the audience refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing, and no signage of any kind is allowed in the chambers. We also ask that everyone take a seat and not gather in the entryway area. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Excused.
President Schwab. You're on mute.
President Schwab, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely?
Here.
Councilmember Fossey?
Here.
Councilmember Toohey?
Here.
Councilmember Ryan?
Here.
Councilmember Bader?
Here.
Vice President Zerlingo?
Here. I would like to ask Councilmember Toohey to lead our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Councilmember Ryan, will you please give us the land acknowledgement?
Yes. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Shahopes people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the lands and waters. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes to bring about a future that includes their voices, their stories, and their people to form a more just and equitable society.
And next, do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes of August 7th, 2024?
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Second.
Vice
Clerk?
President
Yes.
Zerlingo, there's two, one for
We can
August
go back to
6th.
the 6th.
And one.
Just
Okay.
let's do the 7th.
I'll do the 7th then. And Clerk, please take the roll for the minutes of August 7th.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
President Schwab? Councilmember Fossey?
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Vice President Zerlingo?
Yes, and also do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes of August 6th, 2024, the special meeting?
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Second the motion?
Clerk, please take the roll.
President Schwab?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey?
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Abstain.
Vice President Zerlingo?
Yes. Now it's time for public comment, which includes written comment acknowledgement. Under our rules, written comments are considered in the same way as oral comments. The commenter must provide their name and city of residence. Written comments require this to be made part of our official council record. Angie, do we have written comments or anyone signed up to speak this evening?
Good evening, Vice President Zerlingo. We have no written comment, but we do have one individual here. Timothy, if you could please come to the podium. And you'll just click on the button on the right, on the mic, there's a button on the right. And I just need you to state your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll let you know when your time is up.
My name is Timothy A. Wetstein. I was born here in 1955. I've lived here most of my life. Went to Catholic school, went to Everett High. I want to know, basically, I know why Proposition 1 failed. Everybody I talk to, and I got a lot of friends here in town, when did the police department go from being proactive to reactive? We don't have them out there cruising the neighborhoods. I mean, I just saw 6 cars last week sitting at IHOP. You see 3 cars at Starbucks. You see them at all the fire stations. They're not out there doing their job. This is a job. They should be out there cruising and being proactive. Because if they're out there, then people know they're out there. How much more time do I got?
2 minutes.
Okay, now we're gonna get into the fire department. Why do we have a contract with a independent ambulance place when we have $350,000 aid cars out there that can transport people? I mean, those guys are driving around in a Bentley, for God's sakes. It's just, they just need to, we just need to use our resources more. And if you do, people will vote for you. They will pass these things, but we're wasting money. And this is what I hear from everybody. I hear it at my church, I hear it everywhere. We just gotta start, using our money. People want to see people, our people, they work for us. They wanna see us out there doing their job. They don't wanna see them sitting in, at a Starbucks, and that has to do with your dispatcher, that has to do with your police chief, has to do with your fire chief. They need to be out there moving around so people see them. Okay? That's all I got to say. I'm gonna take my broken butt home.
Thank you, Timothy. And that concludes our public comments.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to council comments and liaison reports. Councilmember Vogely.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I think it was Timothy, and I hope I'm right. There are lots of answers. I'm not going to go into it, but I hope that, gosh, I wish the mayor was here tonight. She'd be like, so you can talk to this person and that person. But I hear you, and I would like to have more conversation with you about that. And we had the Built Environment Committee meeting tonight, and a lot of questions were asked about land sales and property acquisition and all of that good stuff. And then also, of course, the comp plan, because it is comprehensive, thus the shortened word comp. And I would recommend watching what we talked about and definitely going online and going to any of the public venues to tell us about housing and even more than housing. So that's all. I went first.
Councilmember Fossey.
Thanks. I'll be brief. I just wanted to get an update to some of the community that had heard us make a motion and vote on it for an independent budget analyst role consultant for the council. And I want to clarify that there is going to be a cap on the expense for that. The council does not have its own staff. And so this is something that we are looking at, $10,000 or under type of cap, so we're not going past it. And that is just, a small, tiny portion of, other things and services that the city pays for when it comes to payroll and other things. So this is just a very small part-time consultant position and role to help support council in trying to make heads or tails of what's going on with our budget and explore other avenues to help save people with their taxpayer dollars. So I just want to make sure that the public knew that.
Councilmember Toohey.
I have no comment tonight, thanks.
Councilmember Ryan.
No comments or updates, thanks.
Councilmember Bader.
Just another real quick one. I learned today that the HOV lane on northbound 5 is open up to Steamboat Slough as of today. So I want to say a big thanks to WashDOT for pushing that through, expediting that, and also to our traffic engineer, Corey Hurt, for advocating for that to get that open as soon as possible. And hopefully we'll see some benefit from that here in the next couple of days as people get used to the new traffic pattern. And I think the final opening of the final part of it into Marysville will happen in October. So big thank you to a lot of people for that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bader. And a quick pile on to what Councilmember Vogely said about the Built Environment Committee today with Councilmember Bader and I and her. That's a really important thing that the city is engaged in right now. It'll affect us for many years to come. Now is the time to have the maximum leverage on that, to have your input to be heard, to learn what kinds of things are being considered in this community, in the county, and other communities nearby. Now, on to an administrative update.
Councilmember Schwab.
Excuse me, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Schwab.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple updates. We're looking at a budget committee meeting on September 11th, potentially between 5 and 6 o'clock. So that's confirmed, not confirmed yet, but that's what we're planning. And then separately, I will be making an announcement next week on the status of our budget consultant. This is a separate person. Thank you, Councilmember Fossey, for bringing that up and clarifying that. This will be an independent look at our budget, and we'll make an announcement next Wednesday on the progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schwab, and for your patience. And with respect to administration update, I understand we have a request to pull and defer item number 6 from this evening's agenda.
Yes. All right, that's it. No, that's not the only thing, but
Yes.
yeah, we're asking to pull item 6 from the consent agenda. That's the closing ordinance for the Silver Lake Trail. Staff has just identified some additional work that we do still need to complete using the funds in that ordinance, and so we'll just bring that back when that work is done, which probably be several months from now. We might not even remember that this night happened, but that's the plan with item 6. I will myself, or I'll have the right staff member reach out to the public commenter, to Timothy, just to have further conversation about what he shared tonight. And I've got your phone number, so that's useful. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. And on to our Deputy City Attorney, Ramsey Remmerman.
No comment, but we are asking for an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230, 110, sub 1, sub I, to discuss legal ramifications related to agenda item number 8, and we are asking to hold that before the briefing on item number 8.
Indeed, that's the plan. Thank you very much. And now on to our consent items. Do I hear a motion for approval of the 4 consent items?
Councilmember Ryan, so moves.
And second, Councilmember Bader.
All right. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
President Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Bader,
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes. And now moving on to our proposed action items, item number 5. Council Bill 2408-16, the first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special construction project entitled Municipal Court Security Camera Upgrades Project. That's Fund 342, Program 045, to accumulate construction costs for the project. Third and final reading will be on August 28th of this year. And let's see, do we have any questions or comments on 2408-16? Councilmember Vogely.
What with everything going on, I did read the link. I guess I just hope somebody can come to us next week or the week after and tell us a little bit more about that and why it's necessary to have new cameras. And, yeah.
Request is noted, and as previously explained, item 6 has been deferred. Are there any other questions or comments on that item, or either of those? All right. We're moving on now to our action item. Item number 7, Council Bill 2407-15. This is the third and final reading. Adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled WFP Air Scour Blower Building Replacement Fund 336, Program 034. Do we have any questions or comments on this item? All right, with no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Councilmember, go ahead. Second.
Councilmember Ryan, so moves.
Councilmember Bader, second.
All right. And we've had no questions or comments on that. Clerk, please take the roll.
President Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes. And now I believe we're out for a 15-minute executive session and coming back with a briefing on item number 8. The executive session of the Everett City Council is being extended 10 more minutes. The Everett City Council is back in regular session after the conclusion of executive session, including our hybrid attendee, Council President Schwab. Next, we have Council Bill 2408-18, the first reading, adopt an ordinance establishing a voluntary separation incentive program that will be available to eligible City of Everett employees. We anticipate a third and final reading on August 28, 2024. We have our Labor and Administrative Services Director, Candy Bartlett, here for a briefing. Candy?
And
Oh,
Council
and,
Vice President,
and
sorry, I'm going to kick this off and then pass it to Candy. So
That's our Executive Director, Lori Cummings.
very briefly, good evening, council members. Candy Bartlett is here, as Council President, Vice President mentioned, and we'll brief you shortly on the Voluntary Separation Incentive Program ordinance, but just a quick overview. Council received numerous briefings on the city's budget and structural deficit, most recently in 2023 and 2024. Those briefings and ongoing conversations resulted in an understanding that there was a need for a revenue solution. The decision was made, and the really difficult work, thank you very much, council members, for that difficult work, resulted when council passed the resolution to place Proposition 1 on the ballot. Everett voters decided against Proposition 1, a sustainable funding option. We respect the voice of the people, and in the coming months, we will do the difficult and likely painful work necessary to cut $12.6 million from the 2025 budget. The structural deficit is persistent and ongoing. The need and goal moving forward is to look for sustainable reductions. As I just stated, we face a $12.6 million projected deficit in '25. It grows to $16.8 million in 2026, and over 2030, in 2030 grows to 35.4. I want to take just a minute to talk about budget timeline, because I think we're hearing questions about why so quickly. And there are RCWs that specify the timeline specific for a lot of our budget work. That may help some folks understand why we're doing this when we're doing this. For example, the RCW indicates that department estimates need to be filed with the budget office on or before the fourth Monday in September. And the budget office needs to present estimates on or before the first business day in October to administration. So that the mayor then intends to deliver her budget message and proposed budget, which she intends to be a collaborative process this, more so than ever this year with council, around October, I believe it's the 23rd?
Yes.
On or around. In other words, the time is short. So offering the voluntary separation incentive program to employees as a first step makes sense while we continue to look at other options. Although we continue to consider other reductions, the outcome of the VSIP will inform our work collaboratively with council to draft the proposed budget and to determine what additional reductions we need to consider. So with that, I'll have Candy provide the details on the program.
Thank you, Lori. Good evening, council. Staff is requesting that City Council adopt an ordinance establishing a voluntary separation incentive program for eligible city employees. The purpose of the program is to reduce compensation costs as well as to facilitate redeployment, reorganization, and other efforts to make more efficient and effective use of the city's limited resources. The program would be open to appointed employees in administration, communications, economic development, emergency management, fire, library, parks, and in police. It would also be open to all EPMA members. That would be your police lieutenants and police captains. It would also be open to AFSCME members in finance, the clerk's office only, library, all classifications, parks and facilities, to include park rangers and all classifications in facilities, and in police, parking enforcement. Eligible employees who apply and are approved for voluntary separation under this program shall receive 6 months of city-paid COBRA medical benefits for themselves and current dependents that are currently enrolled on the city's sponsored healthcare plan. They will also receive 1 year of city-paid access to the Vera Clinic and a one-time severance payment equal to 4 months' base salary. Eligible employees must separate employment prior to November 30th of this year, unless an exception is approved by the mayor. This program has been discussed with both EPMA and AFSCME, and they have both approved us to provide this program to their employees. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding this program at this time.
All right, do we have questions or comments from council members? All right. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, thank you, Candy, for that. I understand that this is for moving forward for next year's savings, and I still feel that it's important for the council to understand where we're at this year with our budget and what we look at, what it's going to look like at the end of the year, so that I think that will help. It will help me understand the ramifications of this, and I would want to make sure that we have somehow levels in different departments so that we don't wipe out a complete department. Those are my concerns. I hate to see employees that have spent a lot of time with the city and have a lot of institutional knowledge. I hate to see them go. And I think it hurts us many ways for a long time if we let too many of those go. So I would prefer not to, but I would still like to understand where we're at with our budget and what the projection is for the year end to move forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, other questions from council members? Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. Under eligible employees, not all of the departments under our general fund are listed. Why is that?
Again, we strategically looked at departments where there could be further reductions in those departments so that those employees would have a chance to have an opportunity to take advantage of this incentive program.
I think it'd be helpful for me to have more of a visualization of how many FTEs this represents per category that's listed here. And then also how it fits into a larger plan. If there's a certain number, like what is our target number of individuals? And then if we fall short of that, how will that be made up for with other cuts to other types of programs? If there's a large number of folks who are applying, how do we limit it to make sure that our government can still work and that we're not disproportionately impacting the people in the city for having a responsive government, which I know is a priority for us here and administration. I'm worried that the cuts might be too deep, too fast, and then the city's completely crippled. So I need to see more of a strategic plan instead of this out of the gate ask for. I understand the need for layoffs. Clearly the personnel is our largest budget item at the city, but they're also the most what we need to invest in the most as well. I do have worries and concerns about limiting vacant positions to holding them open for only 4 months. If we're offering 4 months of severance, but then turning around and rehiring for that same position just in that same amount of time, then that's not a savings that we will see on our budget in the long run. I'd like to see that number increased or even a hiring freeze of some sort for all positions across the city, not just the held vacant positions that would be realized through a voluntary layoff program. And then a bit separate from this, but along the same lines, with the October 23rd budget delivery to council, that is a tight turnaround for us to be able to go through that giant binder, and I understand there's a lot of pressures and a lot of work that go into putting it together, and it's a quick turnaround to put together all of this information, but that's a difficult ask for us to get it on the 23rd and then just have the 3 readings to turn it around. So if there's even a way to have it the week before and have like an every other week timeline for budget deliberations this year, I think that would be helpful for us to have adequate conversations and the ability to look through it. I think last year we had the budget delivery early September, but then we didn't receive the actual budget for 3 weeks or so, which I'm not quite sure I didn't understand the timeline then either, but the more time the better this year. I think, all hands on deck is gonna be necessary and critical, and with the budget analyst for the council to help support us through that process too, I think that'll help all of our understanding of how to move forward from here on out. So those are my comments.
Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you. I'm remembering the voluntary separations from 2019 and 2020, and just remembering some of the few people that took those separations, and where they were in like code. You hear me talk about code and all that. So, and I know that since then, we've been without a lot of staff, and we hear about that all the time, because it does affect all of the staff that is here. And we've also added positions newly in a few of the budgets, and in salary ordinances. We have increased not only the FTE, but the, I can't think of the word, and it's not code, but it's the other one, which start out at more than some of the folks that left ended at, right? So what's my point? There are a lot of jobs at stake that the people need for this city to work well. And I'm just, all of the things that my colleagues have said so far, I would agree with so far. And it's a very difficult time, and that's what I have right now.
Councilmember Fosse.
I just wanted to appreciate you working with labor and our unions and talking to them and really considering, the workforce impacts on that. It sounds like you've took that into consideration a lot, dealing with the kind of budget setup that we have, where every year we have less and less to work with because we're not even keeping up with inflation, is very, very difficult on a city that is full service, and so much of our funds go to employing staff, much needed staff, and a lot of these departments are stretched thin. So I know that that is not an easy decision, and that's very difficult conversation to have. So I just wanted to put out there, appreciate that the work that you're doing on that. And I want to second everything that my colleague, Councilmember Ryan, had said. I would appreciate a visual FTE. That would help me try to kind of understand everything. And with regards to a hiring freeze, if this is not something that you can include within this document, you prefer it separate, we can make a motion at a later time to have it run concurrently, to have, because I think a lot of people are interested in kind of being able to track that employment a little bit better, and always have an out, bring it to council. And I'm not talking about bringing it to council like tucked in the budget somewhere. I mean, on independent, like, needs of emergency hiring, bring that to council, but then like an extended period of time where we do have a hiring freeze, with the obvious, if there's exceptions that you need, come for council approval. So you guys can work on putting that in this document, and then also some of the other adjustments and things that we had discussed. Would like to see those too. And yeah, we can just come back to it later, but thank you.
Just a clarification, I'm thinking any language about a hiring freeze probably should be addressed separately from this ordinance, and you're okay with that. The only other thing I would say is that that we certainly have held our hiring now. The Proposition 1 failed 2 weeks ago? Week ago, sorry. It's been a long week. And so, but I think we need to think strategically about long-term hiring freezes, just flat across the board. Build in some opportunities as we absolutely need certain positions filled. So I we need to think about that when we're considering how long and which positions we're holding vacant.
I think something that blatantly brings it to the attention of council how these are happening and having that outlet of, yes, this is absolutely needed, this is a position that, you know, we need to have filled. That is an avenue, I think, for that to happen. But given our budget situation, it's kind of one of those things that we need to have eyes on and be brought to our attention and not just tucked in like budget decisions later, which I know in the past, some of those things would happen and it was very difficult to kind of track. And I'm not saying that there was any impropriety whatsoever, just saying from a council perspective, those reorganizations and those changes and how people were moved around and things like that is for the layperson a difficult thing to track. So putting that out there for the public, I think that is assurance that they know that their dollars are being spent well. And by no means am I saying that we want our department stretched thin, but if you want us to do a separate agreement when we can motion for that at the final reading, if you guys want us to create a separate one outside of this.
Sure, and I mentioned it earlier, I think more than ever, this is a year where a collaborative budget process, which includes council, is more important than ever. It always is important, but certainly moving forward, there's some big decisions to be made that we certainly need to collaborate with council on and work with them.
Thank you.
Work with you.
Yes, Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, on that note, there's not a lot of time between now and when the budget will be presented. So if we're going to work ahead of that, or usually we don't work on it till we receive it, but if you want us to work ahead of time, then I would really suggest that the council president work with staff on scheduling several budget committees meetings between now and then, like at 5 o'clock, as opposed to at the end of our meetings when we're all tired. We could do that in lieu of our regular committee meetings. We could take turns with that, but I personally would rather be on this side of it than that side of it. It's a lot easier to understand if we can work with you guys during the process.
I'll work with, well, I already started working with council president, and that's why he mentioned that concept of
September
the
11th.
September 11th budget committee. But we'll work together on a way to calendar some other opportunities. And then we're always open for, smaller group conversations or one-on-one or a couple council members at a time who want to sit down and dig into the budget balancing items that are under review right now. So that's an open offer.
President Schwab wanted to speak.
I was going to ask President Schwab.
Yes, thank you. We were thinking about September 11th, but perhaps we should move that up a week to the 4th. So we'll coordinate that, and so we have two things that we're going to coordinate as a council. One will be collaborative budget meetings with city staff, and then the other will be with our consultant, the other independent meetings that we'll have with the consultant. Also, I understand the timely need for this particular resolution, but I hope that in the future that any more cost-cutting type items be part of a bigger strategic plan. Thank you.
Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you. So occupation code was the code that I was trying to parse out earlier, but that's not where I am. So as I mentioned, and as this is, there's people in jeopardy, jobs in jeopardy. And then I think of consultants and professional service agreements. And like, for instance, we've recently, now as you know, council doesn't see any of those contracts until after the fact if we look really closely for them. and 3 real estate appraisal consultants have been hired for now, they haven't been paid $50,000 each, but they are on the books now as provide general on-call real estate appraisal services to the city of Everett, real property needs, et cetera. All appraisal services are not to exceed $50,000 in the aggregate, so that's, $150,000. And yes, we don't have to, they're not employees, so they don't get the benefits that working for the city gives people, because working for the city should be a really good job. And that's why it's so difficult to make it not so. And the last time the city hired a real estate appraisal consultant was a single one for $90,000. So that did go through council, and that was for the Y and the park, Emma Ewell. And I might have that wrong, but the number is correct. So my point is, even if we have people separate, there are still all of these positions that we're hiring for that the council knows nothing about. And yes, I have brought it up a gazillion times, at least 5. So I just want, and then we're hiring maybe a $10,000 consultant for the budget, and everybody knows, right? So this isn't about separation, but it is about how we are hiring people and what they're doing and when do those receipts come in. And I think it's a really important time to bring that up because it's a crisis, and that is all.
Councilmember Fosse.
Question based on that, is the reason for that not, is it because of the mayor's discretionary funding level, or what is the reasoning?
Are you asking about the real estate
Yeah.
consultants? I think that they're all, I don't know for sure that they're all 3, I know there are 3 separate projects, and I think there are different project managers seeking specific expertise for each of those contracts. But I'm happy to find the ones that you were referencing and follow up on that. So if one is they're each specific to.
Integra is one. They did the weights.
That part doesn't help me, but yeah, I'll look it up.
We
yeah.
hired them, and there was a whole bunch of interesting things that I won't go into because it's not the budget right now. But
How much was the amount on that one?
Integra's 50, they're all 50, up to 50,000.
So it is the discretionary funding
Yeah.
threshold?
They all are complying with your adopted purchasing policy.
Right, which I talked about and was trying to get answers to earlier today, but we haven't had that conversation yet. It is legal. It is absolutely okay. But it's still something that I have trouble discussing and getting answers about without.
Oh, I think we'll have an answer to you like early tomorrow morning. This was a real busy day, so I'm
This
sure
is
we'll
what-
get, I
it's
know
not-
you'd sent
it's
that
okay.
question in, mid-morning, and I think we'll have that answer to you within 24 hours.
So can I, I'm going to ask my colleague, would it be something that having a different discretionary level so that those types of things come through council so those questions can be answered, be helpful?
It would be helpful if we knew earlier than afterwards
So
who's
like
getting hired as a
on
consultant.
consent, like perhaps if those things were put on like our consent agenda, and they would be required to if we had a different discretionary spending threshold. Correct? That's what would happen? And that would provide adequate notice, so if you wanted to go into detail into what the items are on the consent agenda? Okay. Yeah, okay. Can I make a motion to look into considering a different discretionary threshold for specifically that type of element?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do we have discussion?
So maybe just to aid the clerk who is like, what's the motion?
To work
Your
with
intent
legal
is
to
ask legal to look into the procurement policy and the
discretionary level, reducing it
level
to,
that requires council approval.
yes.
For
That.
probably primarily professional services agreements?
Primarily,
Okay. I mean, I think that is that section, so, but that's, okay. the
professional,
intent.
I mean, there's music, there's professional service agreements that are as small as $500. That may not be what we're going for.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's it. All right.
So, looking at the basis, what current laws or rules or whatever govern this and what it is, just, okay. Thank you.
Ramsey, you have what you need to take the next steps, all right? Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Bader.
Yeah, I just point out in regards to these professional service agreements, I believe when we set the limit, we did so with an eye to what other jurisdictions do. So we are not outliers on doing this. This is, I think, the typical thing for cities throughout the Puget Sound region in terms of the way we operate. So I just would note that as we reconsider this.
Councilmember Fosse.
Thank you for your comment, Councilmember Bader. It is also an unusual circumstance of where we are in our budget, having failed this levy lid lift, and so it's kind of unique circumstances, and we're supposed to consider all of the options we need to make us accountable for the limited amount of dollars that we have.
Any other comments on our questions on our original measure? Councilmember Vogely.
No, but I just want to say that sometimes other people say it so much better than I do. That's all.
All right, with that.
Council Vice President,
Yes.
Can I just verify, Councilmember Bader is correct. We actually see most jurisdictions with the higher limit prior to those coming to council. And I would just ask council to consider what might be an unintended consequences with the additional work that is required of our staff to bring lower dollar amount professional service agreements to council. So I just request that that be a consideration.
Okay. Thank you. Now on to our next item, a briefing item expected to be,
Wait, I need to take the vote.
oh, we're taking a vote on. No, this was a,
I took that as two
Yeah, that
council
doesn't
members
need-
asking for legal to
doesn't
look
need a
into
vote.
something, which doesn't take a vote.
I'm sorry, one more point, and that is, one, Councilmember Vogely mentioned the risk to employees. And I think what's really important is to point out that right now, this is a voluntary separation incentive program that we're looking at. It's voluntary for staff. We have not determined if there would be further workload reductions and workforce reductions. I think the goal of this program is to see what opportunities our employees want to take with this voluntary program before we begin considerations on further workforce impacts.
Thank you for that important clarification. Now on to our next briefing item, expected to be an action item next week, August 21st. Adopt a resolution concurring with staff recommendation and authorizing the mayor to implement next steps to establish an Everett Chamber of Commerce. And for this evening, we have Julie Willie, our Community Development Director, and Tyler Chisholm, our Placemaking Manager.
Good evening, I'm Julie Willie, I'm the Community Development Director, and I'm here with Tyler Chisholm, the Placemaking Manager. And if we possibly could transport back to June 12th, when Tyler was here and he shared a little bit about the Everett Chamber, and you might remember the great questions you had and the great enthusiasms you had for making an investment in an Everett Chamber organization to support our economic development viability and the future growth of our community, which after listening to this hard conversation before, I know we all feel we need, so. Now, to my presentation. Let's see, Tyler's gonna start with a quick recap of that, and then I will share a high-level COVID relief fund overview and request the approval of a resolution designating $600,000 for the relaunch of the Everett Chamber. So with that, we'll pass it on to Tyler.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be here with you again and to move the ball forward on this exciting project. Last time I was here, I was coming off of a really successful Sorticulture weekend. I wish the energy for this presentation was the same. I will share a bit of hope, though. I think as a city staff member, you know, I'm hopeful the positive momentum of Everett will carry Everett through. I think things are going to be really difficult. You all have difficult decisions. I think this is an exciting project that will spur on our local economy and support our partners and our businesses to kind of move things forward. So I'm still very hopeful. My energy tonight is positive and delighted to be here. So I won't take up too much time. I will just recap a couple top line points from my presentation on June 12th. First one is the history of the chamber. Just want to remind you all that Everett had a chamber of commerce before the city of Everett was established. The Everett Chamber of Council, the Everett Chamber of Commerce, merged with two other chambers of commerce to form the Economic Alliance in the mid-2000s. I may have misspoke at the last presentation where I think I suggested that Economic Alliance absorbed the Chamber of Commerce. That was incorrect. A community member called me, somebody who was instrumental in sort of forming Economic Alliance, and shared a couple of interesting details. One is that, yeah, the Economic Alliance did not exist before the chamber merged with those other chambers. So it was the genesis of Economic Alliance was the merger of three chambers. And then one of those chambers has since gone to start the Linwood Chamber of Commerce. So one of those three chambers of commerce that merged together to form Economic Alliance is now the Linwood Chamber of Commerce. So I think that's just kind of further evidence of local communities restarting previously established chambers of commerce. Key functions of a chamber of commerce, just to remind you all and kind of how it's differentiated from other economic development organizations. Key functions of a chamber of commerce: business resources and networking, community engagement and promotion, and advocacy. I said last time that we have the Downtown Everett Association, which in some way is very much like you can think of it as HOA for property owners in downtown. It's a small geographic area. Economic Alliance is a large regional organization. Obviously, we're doing economic development, but our scope and how we do economic development as a government is much different than a chamber. The chamber is focused on Everett. It's hyper-local, and it's doing direct resources, community engagement, and advocacy for businesses. And then I'll close just the 5 points of why we should reestablish an Everett Chamber of Commerce. The first one is the businesses are asking for it. If you remember last time I said I was a bit of stick in the mud on the idea of reestablishing a Chamber of Commerce. And talking to businesses the last year, there is a demand and request for this. I know Councilmember Bader, you had asked for some clarification on that. And we can talk more about that. Without a chamber, Everett's at a strategic disadvantage. If you remember at our last presentation, we shared that Everett is one of the few cities in Snohomish County that does not have a dedicated chamber of commerce. We work hard to support our businesses. During COVID and using COVID relief funds, we did grants to the business community, and this is just a continuation of us using ARPA funds to support and make sure that our local businesses are at a competitive advantage. Chambers are critical for a thriving business ecosystem. Again, the way that we do economic development in government is much different than how a chamber does economic development. The chambers are able to deliver that high-touch, hyper-local care and support for businesses. A chamber will help to continue to generate economic momentum. I think Everett is really thriving. Like I said, the energy in this room and some of the tough economic challenges we're facing in the city is one thing, but I'm bullish on Everett. I say that over and over and over again. I see so many new people moving to Everett. We have a tremendous amount of inbound leads when I say inbound leads, I mean people who are calling, looking to open a business in Everett. I'm focused on downtown Everett. The energy around downtown Everett is so positive. A chamber is going to help add capacity for us to do that important economic development work and really continue to capitalize on this momentum. And then last, I'll say that the chamber will help generate revenue for the city, and it's part of our kind of long-term strategic plan for help balancing the structural budget deficit. A few ways. Chambers help businesses grow. They help businesses relocate here. And then they also support tourism. It's the fourth largest industry in the state. Tourism helps generate lodging tax funds, which we can use to offset a lot of our costs for our placemaking initiatives. I think that's it for me. Oh, no, I lied. Forgive me. Next steps and timeline. I shared this at our last presentation, but here's where we are, the highlighted in red. We're coming to you to give you a full picture of the resolution for chamber funding. If that is approved, a program would be developed to launch the chamber. We would plan to launch the chamber hopefully in 2025, and then the dispersal of funds would likely be over a multi-year period. And then with the hope and plan that the Everett Chamber would be self-supported, the city would be a member.
So before we go any further, we just wanted to take a second and back up. Obviously, this is a COVID relief fund resolution requesting money to use from our COVID fund. So we want to give you a little bit of an update on that. Not heavy detail. If you do have specific projects that you request more information about, I have a little bit of it, but we also can come back and provide additional information. So as you can see on this slide, most of the previously approved COVID relief projects are in progress and in various stages of completion. Those with the green check boxes have been finalized. You will see that the public restroom one is highlighted, and now that they have successfully completed the EMB restroom, and we've heard positive feedback from the community and our user groups, facility has turned its attention to the second site installation near the Everett Park Garage on Hoyt. And facilities have performed a review of the current funding ordinance and project budget and have determined that there will be a shortfall that will need to be adjusted to complete the third location plan for near the Wetmore Plaza. Facilities will be back asking for additional funds to ensure there's enough capital to complete the remaining locations and to help cover any unanticipated issues that may arise once digging or siting, prepping for the site begins. You can also see that next to the daytime services and shelter, there's a red check, and that's because staff has halted the work on this item until the 2025 budget process is finalized. This is just an overview and a reminder that we started with $20.5 million. We've since earned about $600,000 in interest. So our total revenues of the original COVID ARPA funds is now equal to $21,323,900. And that you have previously authorized just over 19 million of those funds. That leaves about $2,138,415 left to allocate, and tonight we're here to request a $600,000 allocation. So just to get to the specifics of what we're requesting on the resolution is that we would like to use up to $600,000 of COVID relief funds to reestablish the standalone Everett Chamber, as Tyler referenced, and just a reminder of how it will support and attract our businesses, provide essential services of networking and business education, and all of the tailored support and advocacy for our small businesses that we believe is so desperately needed. The development of a chamber as a partnership organization will provide the needed services for our business community and grow efficiencies and capacity for our current staff efforts. Once we have your approval, we anticipate a small portion of these funds will be used for a brief professional services agreement. And during that time, a consultant will be asked to develop a chamber formation committee alongside of city staff, but mostly obviously led by businesses in the city. Create those key performance indicators that we know you have an interest in understanding, what is the plan for how they're going to be successful. Establish the necessary legal governance process, which may be a 501c6, could be a 501c3, could be an affiliate arrangement with another organization, and then determine the best fiduciary structure for relaunching a member-based chamber. The remaining funds will be allocated to the chamber for operations in a step-down fashion over 3 or so years, could be 4 years, depending on the membership structure, how long it takes them to launch, how successful they are in the beginning, getting membership dollars, potentially be used for our own membership contribution. But all of those items, because we anticipate there would be over $50,000, will come back to you before we would allocate them. So we're also proposing that we would use the Parks and Quality of Life Council Committee to provide you with the updates and make sure that the small group of you get the questions answered, and then help us to know when to come to the full council. So next steps, next week, we're going to ask you to take action to adopt this resolution, concurring with staff recommendation and authorizing the mayor to direct COVID relief funds toward the establishment of an Everett chamber. Also, in the future, facility staff will more than likely be coming back to talk to you about additional funds for the completion of the restroom projects. And then any of the other remaining COVID funds will become a part of your one-time allocation opportunities for the 2025 budget that I believe will be part of your budget work in the future. So that's the end of our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Julie, Tyler. Council President Schwab and council members, do you have questions or comments? Councilmember Ryan.
Thanks. Do you have a guesstimate of what the additional funds will be needed for the public restrooms?
I heard $500,000. Inflation, all of the things are so much more expensive, and the work, like, it's just costing them a lot more money.
Because there's been about, is it 1.2 million that's already been allocated?
Yep, 1.25, I believe. That's a lot of money. But facilities will definitely have more information for you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just the messenger. I don't have the expertise.
And
And it's
then-
not included in tonight's resolution. Sorry for interrupting.
I understand. And then the remaining balance of COVID relief funds to assist with the 2025 budget balance, does that mean the unallocated money? Or will there be a retallying of projects that maybe haven't gotten started, and then that would be folded into a larger amount, or?
Yeah, we've begun doing some analysis of what has been funded, what has been spent. I mean, what has been allocated, what has been spent, what is anticipated to continue to be spent. I think that we want to continue, if possible, to keep the projects and initiatives moving forward that we have started, that council has given us permission to do, because indeed it was an investment for our community. But again, those are part of bigger conversations. I did highlight the $2 million for the day center, because that is a pretty significant amount of money, and it may very well be better used at this point for something else. But there may be other dollars within that $19 million that could be discussed.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm specifically curious for an update on the police property room move design and the fire training facility design. I would appreciate an update on those two specifically. And then to kind of tie in an earlier conversation about a professional service contract, this is for $50,000, which doesn't go out for public bid or anything. So how will that person be selected?
Well, as with a lot of our smaller contracts, we usually have enough people in the field, in the industry, that we would send a kind of a scope of work and a request for interest, and have them submit a few questions, and then we might do an internal interview process, and then the person is selected.
And how will the advisory board be selected?
I think it'll be a combination. Certainly the work that Tyler and Dan Ernestine and Julio have been doing through the years, the relationships that the mayor has, and then also the consultant. We expect that person will have professional relationships. We also have some brainstorm lists and some kind of thought process around different industries that represent all parts of our community, all sizes of businesses. And it's really, hopefully, the beginning of a board for the chamber organization, that there are people that care and want to be involved in the creation of the chamber, and that they will then be invested and be able to help them to have the governance structure that they need, so that they can get their work done.
Is there a possibility for council involvement in any of this, for advisory board selection members, or to let folks know that this $50,000 contract's available? Like, we have a lot of amazing contacts too.
Yeah,
That could
yeah,
probably be really helpful.
We're calling it a formation committee, not an advisory board.
It says advisory board on our.
Oh, sorry, that part didn't get
materials.
updated. So we changed the words because it seemed a little more aligned with what we're asking them to do, is formulate and create a chamber. But I think that we can definitely collect your ideas and talk further about ways to include you.
Is there a way for that to be more intentional?
Yeah, I mean, of course, so absolutely spreading the word about the opportunity. I don't know the time.
Yeah, we can, I mean, we can share with you the scope of work or the call for applicant, and you can share that appropriately. You know, we're also mindful of workload and that the chamber is intended to be in partnership, and that's why we're hiring the professional contractors so that they can do the work. And so potentially, right, a council member could be on the formation committee. I think that would be appropriate way to have a liaison to be kind of engaged in the work that they're doing and share your residents, you know, feedback that you hear. And so that might also be an option.
And then I apologize, I missed this earlier when you were going through the list of roles and responsibilities for that portion of events. Would they also be choosing leadership for a chamber, or?
Yeah, I think that would be probably one of the key performance indicators. When they determine what the governance structure is, then they would work toward hiring or, you know, establishing the leadership of the future chamber.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you can kick me if you have something to say.
Just a question for Councilmember Ryan. You would use the word intentional. Can the process be more intentional? I wonder if you could, what that looks like in your mind's eye, the intent, when you say intentionality.
Well, once a week, we're all gathered here together in chambers for a meeting. So an update at that time, a call, an email to all of us letting us know that the process has started with the request to send it out to our networks, or let us know if there's anybody who should be included in this. But oftentimes we hear from the dais this ask of, sure, you can be involved, but there hasn't always been a follow-up afterwards of an intentionality of, here we are in the process, here's a great time for you to plug in. Please join us in this one Everett journey.
And we also try and use the digest, we try and use Jennifer, and we try and use the briefings, the council committee. So certainly, we're, yeah, happy to do that.
I'll definitely add it to my regular admin update notes and try to fold that in. And Julie's right with the other methods that we hopefully are effective ways of communicating, but yeah.
And then last, then Council Digest, the last ARPA spreadsheet update that I could find was from January, but it was my understanding those were supposed to be coming quarterly to council of all of the allocations that we have made and just any updates that have happened in the meantime. So I'd appreciate to have those come back through again, because they were helpful to stay updated on how things were coming along. And then a request to my colleagues as well for next week, as we consider the resolution. I would love to hear updates from my fellow council members about our last council allocations and where folks are with allocating their dollars and organizations that they've awarded their money to, so that we can avoid duplication. Thank you.
Councilmember Fossey, did you?
I was going to bring up, thank you. I was going to bring up the ARPA dollars statuses for last year and also allocations for this year, because I still don't know the status update of the allocations for last year, where they're at. So if somebody could reach out to me and send me an email.
I'll have Angie do that.
Thank you.
She's sort of, fortunately for me, she has taken on more of the role of managing those council members' allocations, in addition to Julie's staff that do the contracting side of it.
I was just clarifying, that's what you're talking about, is council allocations.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I also wanted to have clarification, the Council of Neighborhoods dollars, that is a done deal, right? That is definitely, that's not going anywhere, correct? The ARPA dollars?
That's right, and we've had conversations, at least one formal meeting with the Council of Neighborhoods leadership, and then I think it kind of bumped up against National Night Out events and summer breaks and things like that. And so I expect they'll be probably having a bigger conversation at the full Council of Neighborhoods, probably September-ish, to talk about their vision for how to just use those funds.
Great. And can you remind me of the deadline to use ARPA dollars?
Well, when you made the council action to kind of swap funds, I don't know if that's the right word, but no, not swap, that's bad. Okay, sorry. Jennifer, we moved it to a different
At one
fund.
point, when we were concerned about the federal deadlines, council took an action that shifted the COVID recovery fund, or the ARPA funds to a COVID recovery fund that just has the same rules as other general government funds. So,
However, most of them have the resolution attached to them for how we're going to be spending those funds. But what that did was remove the timing requirement that the ARPA funds were mandated to do. So if we do still have a couple $1 million in the ARPA funds because that's how we distributed the Everett Forward grants, which allowed us to give money directly to businesses. And we didn't have to worry about like the gift of public funds with those specific dollars. So those are ones that we still have to do the annual report or the quarterly reporting, the annual expectation that they will all be expended by the end of 2026.
Okay, so we don't technically have that deadline anymore?
Nope,
That's
just for
great
those
news.
ARPA ones.
Okay.
Or
great.
the Everett Forward ones, which, again, we can definitely get you specifics, but, they've already spent, upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars, close to that $1 million for both rounds, so there's not a lot left.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I just want to run back to the chamber issue here. I just want to make sure that, because the city is kind of leading the charge, and I really believe that really needs to be business-centric, and so I really feel that it's important that the advisory committee really consists of businesses throughout the city to really focus in on their needs, and I think the optics of that will look better than having the city planning a lot of it. So I just want to make sure that happens. And I would also like to have an update back to council when we have the advisory committee, as well as when the structure gets penciled in or completed, and then a budget also, so we can see, when the needs for the city money are, what years they need to come in, and what their projections are after, a few months. So that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, those are my issues there. Thanks.
Councilmember Fosse.
I wanted to add, thank you for the presentation and information. I do feel like I've heard the same need from the community and businesses about needing more assistance and a presence and help. As a county seat, I feel like Everett businesses have often been left behind in kind of a lot of those efforts, and it's not because of any, deficiency on the city. It's just pure capacity. And like Marysville has a chamber of commerce, and all of these, other cities around us have chambers of commerces. So the fact that we don't, I think is quite a deficit for our business community. So this is really kind of exciting, I think, in a time where so many businesses are still struggling. This is, kind of a something to look forward to. I know you had said that the city would be a member. And we talked about council on the formation, but the overarching later on after things are formed, there will be some, is it a governing board or some, okay, so council, hopefully, city, yes, but I'm saying separately having a council liaison there. I would like to strongly advocate for that, because that will keep us in tune with needs and things from the business community, because council plays a role in a lot of the policies that impact them, so that would be helpful for us to have a liaison there.
It is common for a city staff member or council member to sit on the board of their local chamber of commerce.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just saying, in addition to whatever city staff you have, having a liaison from council, I strongly advocate for that.
I just also want to reiterate, we are trying to help launch this. We are not trying to help lead this. And so we want to be a partner. We want to be a member. Eventually, that's all we want to be, is a member, that our staff can benefit from the networking, the learning, the opportunities, the advocacy, just like every other member. So just, and all we want to do is walk alongside the consultant as they're doing the work, so that we have those updates, and we have to ensure that they are also meeting the goals of the contract, just like we do with a lot of our other contract
Yeah, I'm not saying council's driving this. I'm saying that.
no, I'm saying
having-
staff are
yeah.
trying not to drive this, yeah.
Having a liaison, so somebody in the know,
Absolutely.
like driving that, like, communication back and forth, that would be very, very beneficial. You said that after the consultant, the remaining funds, is that the consultant is up to 50,000 and then the remaining funds is 550 and then, okay, and so how was it that you were planning to allocate the 550 then?
Well, if we just did kind of basic math where it's stepped down, but none of this has been determined yet because we don't yet know the structure of the actual count, or the actual chamber. Because if if the formation committee decides that they should become an immediate 501c3 and they have all of the responsibilities of operations and taxes and doing all of their own accounting and bookkeeping and everything, that might be a higher number. If they choose to be an affiliate of another organization or have a fiscal agent and then build toward that independence, then they might not need as much money and maybe this money lasts longer. I don't have that specific budget. We just, but if it could be at 250 the first year, which would pay for a full-time staff, maybe an assistant, maybe a opportunity to do events, trainings, what have you, while they're building the membership. Then the next year it could go down to 200. The third year it could be 100. Did I do my math right? I wrote it down somewhere in case you asked this question. but
Is
no.
there a reason why we were allocating specifically $550 on top of that consultant now and not waiting till the consultant comes back to say, this is how much it should be used to really have, set up a robust,
Well, because
chamber?
we believe that we need a chamber, and so by having the money allocated, using these one-time funds to make that investment seemed like an important, like stamp of approval that we're committed to making it.
and I'm supportive of having a chamber. I'm starting to feel like it's a little bit of an arbitrary number.
We'll come
without
back
the-
to you, though, and
Okay.
say, okay, this is like Councilmember Toohey said, we want a budget. Okay, we have a budget, and of that budget over the next 3 years, this is the projected amount that, it's like us granting them the dollars to be able to do the work and then lower it down, and then by year 4, we're not giving them any subsidy to launch to support the operations. Just like we did with the Carl Gibson Senior Center, we started with a higher amount, the nonprofit came in, they grew, they made it successful, they created their own revenue. We're giving them less and less money every year. So it's kind of that staggered approach.
I understand the staggered approach, but the threshold of where you start, like, that's where I'm kind of not understanding. At 550.
Oh, so that we could do it over a course of multiple years? And we have a draft, like, budget that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
where so you guys do have a draft budget of what you're
Yes.
planning on putting
Yes.
this towards.
Yes.
You don't quite know the time period. You have to wait for the consultant information to come back to know if it's going to be over this many years or this many years.
Yes.
And so that's what's going to determine it, and it's going to be going towards staffing, operations, and events.
Yeah, marketing, what other budget items?
All the above, okay.
Yeah, I would say that staff have engaged with other local chamber directors to help us understand what a wise budget to earmark to start the chamber would be, and that's how we came up with that number. Originally,
Okay,
we had
that's
said
helpful.
500. Councilmember Ryan had suggested that maybe we bump that number up, and we're running with that. We think that certainly putting more wind in the chamber's sails is wise, and grateful for that suggestion. Also recognize that there's limited ARPA funds available and other things may come up, so I think we need to sort of set a number. I'll also say that it's not expected that the chamber is going to be fully running off of just the city's contribution. They'll, as soon as the entity is formed, they'll start generating their own revenue from membership sales, sponsorship, and events and things like that. So we're a funding partner, and I think that the funds that we're allocating will be a factor in the overall business plan for the chamber, and that plan will adapt to the different funding sources that come into it. And again, the consultant will help us with that work. And back to the intentionality point and to Councilmember Toohey's point, certainly it's our desire and intention that this is led by the business community, that the business community needs to participate in the formation committee, speak to how a chamber will serve them. That will help develop sort of what the programs of a chamber are. And once those programs are fleshed out, it's a lot easier to estimate cost. And then once cost is established in the business plan, and then, you know, the revenue side of things, we start to fill in all of that, so.
Thank you for that very detailed explanation. It really kind of helps lay out where you came out with this number and the consultation that you did with other chambers. That's helpful to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I see using our COVID recovery dollars to jumpstart a chamber as a perfect use of the COVID relief dollars. It's creating a multiplier effect of how do we turn this money into a bigger pot of money through economic development and support. I'm really struggling with using the remaining COVID dollars to supplant our budget for this next year. I understand, you know, that it could be good, but for me, it's like using your birthday money to pay the dentist or something. Like, it's not, I'm not quite there yet on using our remaining balance to make sure that we can make ends meet next year. So I'm not ready to allocate that money yet. I think, you know, from conversations earlier this evening about seeing our budget for this next year and knowing like where we're at would be a lot more helpful before making that decision. So for me, I'm not there yet on using the remaining COVID relief funds to balance our 2025 budget. So just wanted to share that. Thanks.
We appreciate that you shared that. And Julie basically already said this, but just to be clear, that decision about whether to use the COVID recovery funds would definitely be part of a full budget presentation. And that can be part of earlier conversations, as noted. And I would also add that the mayor really recognizes that that is as you guys know from when we talked about the budget deficit, it grows, and doing a one-time fix does not fix the future. So, yeah, so totally.
Councilmember Oakley.
A couple of things. Is allocating the rest of COVID money in this resolution? Did I okay. Okay, so there's that. Previously, on 24, questions were asked about how other chambers were established, and I didn't hear any answers to that, but I think that maybe that's what the consultant is going to do. Or do you have some answers about how other chambers have been established and what the going rate of establishing a chamber is? And is it really all about the small businesses that absolutely need it, but are places like Boeing and other money bags going to be a part of this? And I know that's also what you're looking into with what you've been saying and in the consultant and how are we going to get it together. But we've got some pretty big businesses in our community. So there you have it.
It's common that a chamber's membership structure, the annual membership fee is dictated by the size of the company, and so that it's a progressive scale. I'll also say that a really common way that chambers are formed is that typically a group of businesses, the business community along with the city will come together. It's not always with the city. This is a unique thing that we're doing to use ARPA funding to seed a chamber and put a lot of wind in their sails so they can come out of the gate swinging. But businesses come together, they decide that they want to form an organization to advocate for their interests and network and all the things that a chamber do. They pool together resources, a legal entity is formed. It's typically a nonprofit. That nonprofit is governed by a board of directors. Typically, then they have a executive director and staff that works kind of underneath of the executive director. Executive director forms or reports to the board. And I know that you like wonky, detailed information, so tell me when to stop. But yeah.
No, you can.
I mean that as a term of endearment. I know that you like the details.
It that way.
So,
Thank you.
But yeah, typically that's how it's created. Our situation is a little unique where we are going to rely on a facilitator like this to facilitate the formation group of businesses that, like I said earlier, will help kind of develop the programs of the chamber, and that'll dictate the overall business plan.
And I just wanted to make notice that on one of those slides, the interest that has been made from where our COVID relief funds are right now is a bit over $600,000. And so I feel a little bit better because, well, that's interest and that's birthday money equaling half of the dental visit. So, you know, whatever, I don't know what the story is, but it was nice to see that that wasn't part of the original pot of money that was allocated to the city for ARPA. I think that's all.
Council President Schwab, did you have anything? All right. Thank you. With no other apparent questions and no further business, we are now adjourned.